Hi and welcome back to the Pangirl Mixtape. So yes, here I am finally with my first proper video for this channel, and seeing as we're almost done with 2020, I thought I would do an end of year TBR and have everything laid out on the shelf right here. So this TBR includes some books and manga I've already started reading and some that I've had on my list for a while and just never got around to because my reading habits are like non-existent, but I am determined to make a change. This TBR is a mixture of novels and manga, but mostly manga just because I don't want to be too ambitious and disappoint myself and all my friends by not completing everything I said I was going to complete. So I have 3 novels in this TBR and then the rest are just manga. So yeah, I'll just get straight into it. So first thing on my list is Dorohedoro by Kyu Hayashida. Now I've already watched the anime on Netflix, which is fantastic. The studio that adapted it is Studio Mappa, and so I already had high hopes even before it was announced, and it definitely didn't disappoint. And during this year I decided I was going to start collecting manga properly. I've been collecting here and there, but not with any kind of real strategy or real direction, but I think I was going to make a conscious effort this year to start my collection, and so I've got the first 2 volumes of Dorohedoro to add to them. Given the tone and setting of Dorohedoro, I was really interested to see how the original manga would compare to my experience with the anime. And Dorohedoro is one of the few instances where I've actually watched the anime first before reading the manga. I almost always do it the other way around. But from what I've read of the first volume so far, the art is just as atmospheric as the anime, if not more atmospheric in my opinion. Every single panel is packed with an immense amount of detail and harsh lines, and Kyu Hayashida really knows how to set the scene. I'm really excited to continue collecting these and continue reading because the anime only had 1 season, and I don't think a 2nd season has been announced officially yet, but I'm sure that once I get into this, I'm going to end up reading ahead anyway. So yeah, first 2 volumes of Dorohedoro. The next manga in my TBR is Spy Family, and this is by Tatsuya Endo, and I'm kind of going into this series blind. All I have to go off of is the testimonies from my friends who read this and say it's great, and just the synopsis that I've read before buying it. It sounds really cool. I don't think there's any other manga I can compare this to just based off of reading the synopsis. So it said, Master Spy Twilight is unparalleled when it comes to going undercover on dangerous missions for the betterment of the world. But when he receives the ultimate assignment to get married and have a kid, he may finally be in over his head. Not one to depend on others, Twilight has his work cut out for him, procuring both a wife and a child for his mission to infiltrate an elite private school. What he doesn't know is that the wife he's chosen is an assassin, and the child he's adopted is a telepath. Not really sure what to expect from this. I kind of just assumed it would be something more lighthearted. I can see it's serialized in Shonen Jump, so it's not going to be the kind of mature seinen I was assuming it would be, but again, that's just an assumption. I haven't actually started reading this yet, so yeah, I'm going in blind, but I'm really excited to read this. If you have read this, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But yeah, Spy Family. So the next manga on my list is Fly Me to the Moon, and this is by Kenjiro Hata. Now I first caught wind of this off a clip that was posted by Crunchyroll on Twitter, and it was just a minute-long clip of the 2 protagonists on a cute date on the park bench. It was just a really cute scene. It was just seemed like a straightforward romance, and in the shonen genre we don't really get much of that, so I was really intrigued. And then I looked it up, and after reading the synopsis I was sold. So it goes, from the day his parents named him, Nasa Yuzaki has felt connected to outer space, whether he likes it or not. His efforts to outperform the space program veer off course when an accident introduces him to Tsukasa, a mysterious girl with strange powers. Is she an alien, a moon goddess, or something else? Since she insists on marrying him, Nasa will have plenty of chances to find out. This sounds like my kind of drugs. Like, the characters start off married and then everything else happens afterwards. Like, I don't think it can get better than this. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. And I haven't seen many people talk about it either, but it really sounds like something I would enjoy, so I'm excited to read it. The next manga on my list is Komi Can't Communicate, and this is by Tomohito Oda. This is one I've actually started, but just the first few chapters because I actually read it on the train after I bought it in person. Now, I first saw panels of Komi Can't Communicate floating down my Twitter timeline, and based off the cover and the synopsis, it really reminded me of A Silent Voice, which is one of my favorite manga of all time. but actually after reading the first few chapters, I think it's a bit more lighthearted than A Silent Voice. I think there's still elements of it being a bit like heartwarming or heart-wrenching. I think the main protagonist suffers from crippling social anxiety, so in that part it can get a bit deep, but for the most part it's more lighthearted than A Silent Voice. And the format of the story is actually what really makes it different. So each chapter is its own story and they're all kind of loosely connected, similarly to Way of the House Husband, so kind of a gag a day format kind of thing. This is another one I haven't seen many people talk about, but from the few things I have heard, they've all been good, so I'm excited to read this one too. The next manga on my list is Blue Period, and this is by Tsubasa Yamaguchi. I caught wind of this one as well from Twitter. I follow an account called Manga Mogura, which is an amazing resource for new manga coming out to the Japanese market. What first drew me in is the cover. As you can see, it's a really nice, beautiful watercolor illustration. You don't really see that often. I've added several manga to my TBR of the recommendations of this account on Twitter. It's a really great resource. You should definitely follow them on Twitter if you use Twitter. I added this to my TBR based off of the cover. I just thought the art was so nice, but the synopsis really sealed the deal for me. Yatsura is the perfect high school student with good grades and lots of friends. It's an effortless performance and ultimately a dull one, but he wanders into the art room one day and a lone painting catches his eye, awakening him to a kind of beauty he never knew. Compelled and consumed, he dives in headfirst, and he's about to learn how savage and unforgiving art can be. So I don't have anything like Blue Period on my TBR, and I don't think I've read anything like this either before. So I'm going in completely blind again. This is another one where I haven't seen anyone talking about it. So I'm really excited to read this, and I should be back with a review. This next manga on my list is one I've been really excited for, and it is Cutie and the Beast. So I actually heard about this again from Manga Mogura several months back, and yeah, just based off the cover, it looks like all the shoujo drugs I'm into. It's got that big burly male protagonist and like the dainty feminine female protagonist. Like, I love it. And the synopsis is just sprinkled with, you know what, let me read it. Most of her friends like pretty boys, but Momoko only has eyes for Kuga, a huge pro wrestler who plays a villainous heel on TV. But in real life, this tough guy has a softer side. Momoko's fan mail touches him in ways neither of them expected. In this light-hearted romantic comedy, a fangirl crush just might grow into something more. Like, I don't think I need to say anything else. I'm really excited to read this. The art is really cute as well, and it's giving me similar feelings as I had with Ore Monogatari, which is another favorite romantic comedy. So yeah, definitely excited to read this. The only problem is, which is a similar problem I had with Ritakoi, is that when I usually start reading a series, I get the first 2 volumes if I can, but I tried to pre-order volume 2, and apparently it's not coming out until February next year. So it might just be a thing where I just have to savor each panel and then try and keep my mind off it. But yeah, I can already tell I'm gonna love this one. In a similar vein, the next manga on my list is Sweat and Soap. Now, hear me out. Actually, there's nothing to really like justify here or defend. It's called Sweat and Soap. That's pretty much what it's about. I've started reading this one, haven't finished it yet, but I can already tell I'm gonna love this one as well. So the synopsis is, Asaka's living her dream, working at the toiletry maker Lilia Drop, but she has a secret. The reason she loves the company so much is that she's ashamed of her body odor, and their soap is the only thing that's ever helped her. So when the company's lead product developer, a perfuming genius, approaches her in the lobby and wonders what that smell is, she's terrified. But could it be that he likes it? That he likes her? And most surprising of all, she might just like him back. So again, it just seems like a really straightforward romantic comedy. None of the misunderstandings that you usually get with your typical shoujo. It just seems more mature and grown up, and yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. Now, I mean, the cover and just like the title and the synopsis makes it seem like it would be really raunchy, and to be honest, from what I've read, it kind of is. But yeah, I was confused about that because it is published by Kodansha and it's 16 plus. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm really excited to continue reading this one. Now, the next manga on my list isn't a brand new series, but rather a new edition of a much loved series, and that is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa, the perfect edition. Now, the main difference between this and the standard edition, which I previously owned, is that it has the first 21 chapters in one volume compared to the first 11 chapters in the standard edition. But more than that is this amazing cover. These covers are so much better than the previous I think I have. So this is the standard edition I have of volume 2, and this is the perfect edition volume. I just think this looks so much better. I mean, this is great too, but I think the collector in me wants to just start again with this one. And it shouldn't be too much of an extra expense. I only had the first 2 volumes in the standard edition, so I think I'm going to collect the whole run in the perfect edition. Now, anyone who mentions seinen manga around me knows that I will recommend anything and everything by Naoki Urasawa. He's a genius storyteller, and I think if you haven't read any of his work, a good entry point would be Monster, 20th Century Boys, in my opinion. So just a brief synopsis for those of you who aren't familiar with the story. Humanity, having faced extinction at the end of the 20th century, would not have entered the new millennium if it weren't for them. In 1969, during their youth, they created a symbol. In 1997, as the coming disaster slowly starts to unfold, that symbol returns. This is the story of a group of boys who try to save the world. Now, it seems pretty straightforward. There's the forces of evil, there's this group of boys, they're going to defeat the evil. But it's just so much more than that. And if you're familiar with Urasawa as well, you can already assume that there's going to be a lot more complicated, more complex, and a lot more deep than that. So yeah, I'm really excited to get back into this. It's been some years already, so it's almost like I'm starting afresh. I'm really excited to experience this story again. And then the final manga on my TBR is another Urasawa manga, and this is Pluto. And actually, Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy, is credited as a co-author on this. I think Urasawa wrote this with cooperation of Tezuka Productions. So this is basically, I don't know whether I describe this as a spin-off of Astro Boy. It's based in the same universe as Astro Boy, but it's a completely new story. So it uses the same universe and some of the same characters, I believe, but it's a whole new story. So the short synopsis is, in an idle world where man and robots coexist, someone or something has destroyed the powerful Swiss robot Mont Blanc. Elsewhere, a key figure in a robot rights group is murdered. The 2 incidents appear to be unrelated, except for one very conspicuous clue. The bodies of both victims have been fashioned into some sort of bizarre collage, complete with makeshift horns placed by the victims' heads. Interpol assigns robot detective Gessit to this most strange and complex case, and he eventually discovers that he too, as one of the 7 great robots of the world, is one of the targets. So yeah, my memories of Astro Boy are surface level. I didn't watch the CGI remake that came out recently. I don't know, must have been some years by now, but yeah, I didn't watch that one. So everything I know about Astro Boy is just surface level. I know about as much as the average person into anime does. But this seems already, just from what I remember of Astro Boy, to be a much more mature story, as to be expected from Urasawa. So yeah, I'm interested to read this. And maybe after getting through Pluto, I'll go back and revisit Astro Boy. But yeah, let me not make any promises given my current reading habits. So that's all of the manga. I didn't want to be overly ambitious and add too many novels to my TBR, so I have 3. And one of them is The White Boy Shuffle by Paul Beatty. Now, the first time I actually came across this novel, I think I just started secondary school. So yeah, I just started secondary school. I was in year 7 and I was in my local library and I picked it up. It was an older edition than this. This is a brand new edition. And I read the synopsis. I was just really intrigued by it and I took it out and I read it. The White Boy Shuffle is about a teenage surf bum forced to wise up when his mother moves from suburban Santa Monica to urban West Los Angeles. There he begins to undergo a startling transformation from neighborhood outcast to basketball superstar and eventually to reluctant messiah of a divided, downtrodden people. A bombastic coming-of-age novel that has the uncanny ability to make readers want to laugh and cry at the same time, BT mingles horrific reality with wild fantasy in this outlandish, laugh-out-loud, funny, and poignant vision of contemporary America. I've actually read The White Boy Shuffle twice, but I was quite young both times I read it. So the first time, like I said, I was in year 7, so I'd have been about 12 years old when I read it, and a lot of it went over my head. Then I read it again in year 9, and I understood a bit more, but again, still, I definitely knew in the back of my head that I was going to have to revisit this for a 3rd time. I think now at the ripe old age, 26, and with everything I know now, I'm better informed to really understand everything that poor BT was writing in this novel. Now, what really made me take this book out from the library when I was 12 years old was the parallels I drew in my mind between this and the Boondocks, and I was obsessed with the Boondocks when it first came out back in 2005 or 2006. So yeah, that's what made me take it out and read it. But again, there's a lot of things that went over my head. I think I was just too young. I didn't have enough life experience to really understand more of the political stuff in here. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this for the first time as an adult, make all my annotations, look up everything, and just really understand it and absorb it properly. The second novel on my list is the book 1 of the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Pacat. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I first found out about this book from Twitter, like I do most things, and I think what I saw was the official cover art for the Japanese edition of the Captive Prince, and it was so beautiful. It reminded me of Yoshitaka Amano's artwork, and he does like the official illustrations for Final Fantasy and has done since the first Final Fantasy game. It looked really beautiful. Then after that, I did some digging and found out more about the story. This book has kind of like a cult following. I was just going through the hashtag and I saw lots of praise for the book, lots of beautiful fan art, and I just thought, after reading the synopsis, that this would be another book I like to read. It's been a while since I've read romance in like typical novel format. Usually I just like dive into like shoujo and josei manga, so I don't know whether this will be what makes me plummet back into that. If you've read the Captive Prince trilogy, please let me know in the comments what I can expect. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna read that before the year is up. And the final book on this TBR is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. Now, if you don't know who she is, she wrote Convenience Store Woman, which was internationally acclaimed. It was just it did really well in the West, and I really enjoyed it. I read it earlier this year, and I just thought it was something really short and different from what I usually read in novels. I really enjoyed the narration and the perspective of the protagonist, who is just really like an odd woman who doesn't conform to any of like society's ideals. It was just really interesting to just read that, and I felt like you could take like a peek into Sayaka Murata's mind through the protagonist of that novel. Now, I actually didn't have Earthlings on my radar. I wasn't aware Sayaka Murata was writing another novel or had published another novel, but I saw this while I was book shopping before the lockdown in Daunt Books. I recognized her name, so obviously I picked it up because I loved Convenience Store Woman. And just after skimming the synopsis, it looked again like the protagonist of this story would be similar to the protagonist of Convenience Store Woman, but the story looks completely different. I'm not sure whether there will be some kind of like fantasy element in here. It's just what I'm taking from the synopsis. But yeah, it looks really different. And the tagline is, how far would you go just to be yourself? So again, I think there's going to be more commentary on like societal expectations, which I really enjoyed in her first novel. So yeah, really excited to get cracking with this. And I think I would like to do a review of this one as well. But again, we'll see. So that's it for my end of the year TBR. Let me know in the comments if you're reading anything I've mentioned in this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.